All right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Well. How many times are we going to have to do this? Now, I know a lot of people are probably just like, yeah, of course she's appealing it. I get it. What's really interesting is this right off the bat. We're going to read this and I'm going to break this down for you guys. And because we're covering Chad's trial, I think it's more relevant because I also did not finish Lori's. And that means whatever we watched last in Lori's case, right, was the last thing that I ever saw. So I don't know all the information that came out from that, but it just is what it is. And maybe sometime I'll go back and look through a little bit more. But hers was really long, just like Chad's. So happy Sunday. Good to see you. I know we're getting into our Christmas this week. We're going to be going live on Monday and Tuesday, and then probably be not around really for Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. We might do a Christmas stream though that night, because my first thought was I know there's people who do not have family and friends to celebrate with, so I don't want you guys to feel, and I don't want anybody to feel alone in our community. This is also a community of people, and so I don't want there to be anybody feeling left out on Christmas Day. So I'll let you know about that. Okay, so I'm going to do a little breakdown for you. We're going to read this first little bit. This is Idaho's response to Lori's appeal. Now, this is the most ridiculous thing ever because it says statement of the case. So there are 10 pages in, by the way. But Lori Noreen Vallow appeals from her judgment of conviction after the jury found her guilty on 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder and grand theft, 2 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, and 1 count of grand theft. So on February 20th, 2020, Lori Vallow was arrested in Hawaii and subsequently extradited to Idaho. The state charged Vallow in the case number, a million numbers, with 2 counts of felony desertion of a child and several misdemeanor charges. The felony charges were 2 of Vallow's minor children, Joshua J Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Neither JJ nor Tylee had been seen in several months. So this kind of gives you the breakdown of everything on here. I'm sure some of you guys have either heard a video about this already, looked at it, watched it, whatever the case may be. One of the things that Lori goes into is she says that Mark Means was wrongfully disqualified. Okay, so Mark Means, her lawyer, was wrongfully disqualified because apparently he was going back and forth trying to discuss things between Chad and Lori's cases. You remember they were supposed to be one. Now, I can't even imagine what that would have been like had they actually combined theirs, because it would have taken, I don't know, years to get through that evidence as one whole trial, which might have been the reason. And then the other reason being is that because Lori did not have the death penalty, that was another big deal. So that's what that is. Means represented both Lori and Chad during the same conspiracy. This was the textbook conflict of interest, and Lori could not waive the conflict because she was legally incompetent at the time. So one of the appeal reasons is that she was very clear that she believes she's competent to this day. I don't even know how to argue that because I am not a psychologist or a doctor, so I can't really say if she's qualified. I personally have always told you guys my opinion on this. My opinion really comes down to the simplicity that I do think she's very competent. I do think that she knows exactly what she's doing, and I do believe in my heart that she is very aware of her actions. Yeah, the religious stuff is there, but listening to the recordings about, wanting, Alex to be, or wanting Brandon to be afraid of Alex for the rest of his life, or, things like that. I mean, I just feel like that was very aware of your actions. The running away, the planning, the code words, the everything is too aware of the situation to be like, and I always use this reference, like, Lenny in Mice of Men. Lenny mentally was unable to split what he was doing wrong. He just didn't understand. Lori is not that level. Lori is not, mentally handicapped in any way, and she is not an unaware person. She's actually really strategic, way more than I ever gave her credit for. And the more we listen to Chad Daybell's trial, the more that I see how calculated she truly is, which is really, I don't know, it's just harder than I thought it would be. So kind of breaking down into the next part. She said that she was denied the right to counsel during the hearings. The state's response was no constitutional violation occurred. Means tried to intervene in Chad's separate case, which he had no legal right to do. Lori was appointed counsel protecting her interest, and there was no structural or fundamental error. So the courts don't let attorneys hijack other defendants' cases, even though they were basically the same thing. Once they separated it, you're unable to do that. You are unable to go back and forth because now it's two separate cases being charged with two different ways, right? Lori did not receive the death penalty and Chad did. So that does make a big difference, right? And the hearings happened while she was incompetent, which is a big thing that she's saying. She wanted, I think, and what she's talking about is certain pieces of the hearing because she was there for all of her stuff, right? It's not like she was absent. So she wanted to be a part of everything. I think what Lori's doing here, and this is why they're just destroying her because she doesn't legally understand what she's doing. We've already known that for a while, but she is very upset that her interest of her fake story and what she tried to do in Charles and Brandon's was not done through her counsel. So I think what happened is that Lori thought that there was going to be that big difference because she thought that if she would have been able to talk for herself, she would not have been convicted in Idaho. But she was probably terrified because she had not been fully tried yet. So because she had everything to lose, she said, you know what, I'm just going to allow counsel to do this. Now, I don't think she had a shot in hell, no matter who her attorney was, to get out of the evidence that I've seen just in Chad's trial. And when we were covering hers, it's the texts, it's the phone calls, it's the codes, it's the actions after, it's the planning, it's everything. It's really hard to imagine anything that she could have done to defend herself in this situation. And all of the different things she said about the kids, it wasn't going to happen, right? So yeah, the state responded with there's no violation in this. She's complaining also in this about Arizona, but we'll get to that. The hearings were procedural and not trial critical. They did not affect the guilt or innocence. And Idaho law allows limited proceedings even when a defendant is incompetent. So I think it's crazy because at one point, Lori had the opportunity to either stay in the mental hospital that she was in or go back to jail, and she wanted to go back to jail. So that just tells you everything, is that she was so gung-ho on the fact that she is mentally able to defend herself, and that whatever she thinks in her head, she was clearly going to fight this and drag her feet and make it as hard as possible, as we saw throughout the entire 4 trials, even though I guess technically one is Chad's. But so they shut that down. And then Arizona's bad acts evidence of 404B should not have been allowed. The state's response is the judge had ruled correctly. The evidence wasn't used to show quote unquote bad character. The evidence was used to use the motive, the intent, the pattern, and how the conspiracy operated. The judge excluded some of the evidence and limited others to reduce prejudice. So basically, you guys remember how she thinks what happened is that all the court did was move to make her look like a bad person. Okay? Lori's pissed off because the court made her look like a bad person, when that is 100% her fault, 100% on her head, and what they used was her own words and their actions. But she wants to complain that Arizona did her dirty and that stuff shouldn't have been admitted. And I think it's because you remember why it was so weird, because the trials are almost backwards in a sense if you think about timelines, right? Charles obviously was first, and Charles went third as far as trials go. When we got to Arizona, because this is why it's so shocking. So I went to Arizona's, I went to a lot of Charles's, and then I think we watched all of Brandon's, and either I was there or we watched Brandon's. And the entire time, remember we kept saying that we want her to mess up so badly because then they can bring in the Idaho evidence. But they were doing everything they could to not discuss Idaho's evidence and make sure that nothing about her previous convictions was even a part of this, so that way the jury would rule based off of the evidence in the trials. And it is weird because when we watched Arizona, those conversations we were having, we had to pretend Tylee and JJ were not gone. Like the way that they spoke, they had to walk around it. But when you go back to Chad's and Lori's, Charles is there, Tammy is there for all of it. I mean, everything is out in the open for even Brandon. So that's why it's weird to be here, because now she's upset because once they went and brought all of Charles's evidence against her in the Idaho trials, I think that's what she's upset about for the Idaho ones, because this is an Idaho appeal. This is not the Arizona. Here we go. Her number one complaint is her right to a speedy trial were violated. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. How many times has Lori made it clear that she had her rights violated, especially to a speedy trial? I don't even know what you can say about that. The state's response is no, all the delays were justified. Most delays were caused by the competency issues, okay, the defense requests, and then complexity of a joint capital case. So she's upset because this happened. She was arrested in 2020, and she probably thought, I'm going to get a case. So let's say she was arrested in April of 2020 and then extradited within that time frame, right? But she probably thought that her appeals and all that stuff, all her entire trial should have happened within that next part. Little did we know that also COVID happened, and that happened right after. I remember we went, I don't know, was it before or after she got brought? No, she was maybe taken in February of 2020. Yeah, it might have been way earlier than April. My timeline's a little off because it's been a long time, but that's my point. She really assumed that she was going to immediately have everything done and that she was going to just pop out of jail, keep living her life. She's upset because her trial didn't get done until 2023, even though she was the one that had to be judged multiple times on competency. And we had to make sure, like, they did everything they were supposed to do. They gave so much leniency. I in my opinion, they put a lot of leniency in that. So, that's my own personal opinion. And then she thinks that, she runs the world. So we'll leave that at that, but that's just how it goes. Okay. So the state's overall message, the trial judge acted carefully and within the law, which is what Lori is upset about, that she thinks didn't happen. Lori's constitutional rights were protected and not violated, which is what she's complaining about. And this is extraordinarily complex with high-stakes case and handled properly. The Idaho state is asking the Supreme Court to affirm the conviction and life without parole in the sentence in full. So really, when you get through these, however many pages, there is 68 pages. If you'd like to read them, you can. I went through them as well and then did a breakdown on them. And the reality is, she thinks that she's can appeal and get out. Now, this is going to be a process that she's allowed to do for a while afterwards. So we're talking about maybe another 4+ years, I think, maybe 5. I don't know exact timelines, but they can keep appealing and appealing and appealing. She's going to do this until the wheels fall off. And whatever she brings up is going to also happen because she has trials in Arizona. So these will happen for a long time because this is just for Idaho, and this is Idaho's response to her appeals. Lori is also, as you all know, very lawless in the sense of she hates the law and thinks that everything about it is unjustified, unfair. Every one of her interviews was very clearly all about herself, number one, into how she's been stuck in prison. And basically, Lori believes in the bottom of her heart that she has been wrongfully convicted. And after hearing it, and as we're covering this, guys, I cannot express to you enough how much this shocks me to know of her involvement in the deep parts that she went to with this, with the covering it up and the laughing during this whole backyard project idea. And yeah, exactly. She's going to appeal everything for the rest of time. And that's just life. I don't know what else we're really able to do. It's just going to keep happening, but I wanted to go over this with you because this is in response to Idaho. And, you know, this is going to keep happening. We might not talk about it every single time. Why I brought it up now, though, is I want to add in a few more thoughts just so you guys have a little bit more context as well. Once she came to Arizona, she thought that she was going to get out of Charles's, and then she thought she was going to get out of Brandon's. She's now tried and convicted in every single one of those cases. She does not have the death penalty, so she has to live the rest of her life in jail. As we know, though, her idea is that she's going to break out of prison, and her and Chad are going to float into the sky, and then they're going to be next to Jesus, and then Jesus is going to put his hands out and be like, these are my ride or dies. And that's kind of the mentality of her. I don't know if Chad's just given up. I know he's writing his letters right now. I've heard that he's like in letter 10 or 11 possibly, and I don't care to read his letters. We already know what they are. We already know they're absolute BS, and they're unnecessarily disrespectful in my opinion, especially when he starts talking about Tammy or, you know, anybody that he puts his words to, because we know he's a liar. So in context here, this is going to happen for a while. These appeals are going to happen probably for both Chad and Lori. What we are always going to see the same theme is that Lori is the victim. Lori is always going to be the person who has been wronged. She did nothing wrong. She's done nothing wrong her whole life. She's a perfect person. And this is everybody else's fault. It's not Lori's fault. It's her. All of her rights were taken from her. She was thrown in jail for basically doing nothing wrong. I mean, that is her mentality. That is how she thinks. And at least that's what she says out loud in every one of those interviews. I know you guys know this, but just to kind of put this whole thing into perspective too, is she is back in Idaho, and that is never changing. She's never going to be, you know, transferred out again. I don't think she will. I'm pretty sure that's the rest of her life there. So what does she have left to do other than try to make more noise and try to do this? One thing I am very aware of that I know is coming, and I don't know how this is going to work, is her book. She will write a book. She has probably been writing it every day for the last 5 years that she's been in prison, almost 6. And at some point, she's going to try to get that thing out. And I don't know what we're going to do when that happens. I've thought about it. And I've thought about all of this, and it's just, it's fullness. I'm assuming Chad's doing the same thing. I mean, of anybody you would assume is writing a book, it'd be Chad. Chad is doing what I think is a media circuit before he writes a book with his letters, getting his name recirculated, getting his self back into the public eye, and then maybe he'll drop a book sooner than later about his entire life. I mean, if anybody's writing a book, it's Chad Daybell, but Lori had confirmed that she is writing one as well about her entire life, which we know is not going to be about her. I mean, it will, but it's going to include everything that's happened, and she's going to say everything that happened in the interview that I did with her that she's said now to the public. And yeah, so even if she doesn't make money, it doesn't matter. It's not about money, right? It's not about her making $1. It's all about the fact that it's her publishing words about the lies that she has made up to further hurt my family and further hurt Tylee's name, because that is the person that she has gone at from the beginning. And these appeals are just an example of her character. She believes she's a victim in this situation. So does Chad. But I never had the full picture until now. I never understood how bad it really was until now, until I heard it for myself. And yeah, we're not buying their books, and you couldn't give me a free copy of it. You couldn't. I know it will pop up. I know it's coming. I just want to prepare everybody else for it as well. It will probably come at some point, and it's probably going to be very incoherent, and it's going to be like when, have you ever seen Transformers 2, when they're chasing the shard and Shia LaBeouf is like glitchy and writing? That's her. And yeah, that's just what it is. So this appeal, is nothing new. This is just the state's response. They're destroying her because they know the case law, they know the law, she doesn't. And I would not expect anything less than her from her at this point. So in all of that, our goal is the opposite. At some point, I will hopefully be able to tell you guys the full story of my family from a realistic perspective. And that is what we're going to do to combat what Lori is going to be doing in the future. So I just wanted to share this with you guys. I'm sure you guys have heard this before. This is a few days old. If you haven't, I'm glad to just provide you a little bit of context. And since we're covering Chads, it is, I think, prevalent to just kind of show you guys what she's still doing. Mind you, it's 2026 in a few days. So that is how long this has been happening. It's been happening since the beginning of 2019 for me, all the way through almost 2026. So it's a long time. Other than that, I love you guys. It is, yeah, if we ever get that book, if we ever get our hands on that book, I'll say this lastly, if we ever get our hands on that book, the amount of times I'm probably going to laugh and then cry and then cuss would be more than you've ever seen. I know one thing Lori loves to do is bring up everybody else's trauma in their lives and talk about it openly. And yeah, that's going to be something else. I also have a question for you guys real quick before we go. There are a set of 3 interviews. Well, I would technically now, let me back up. Let me break it down into this. There are some interviews that Nate Eaton did on East Idaho News, which was with Melanie Gibb, where she tells her version of the story in full. And then there is a version of an interview that's in multiple parts that is also Melanie Pulowski and Ian in that time, mind you. This is all earlier. If you guys would like to add that into the court watchings, we can do that. I just don't want to throw that on because we've had a lot of that, and they're just, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be too much of a difference. I don't think I've seen any of Melanie and Ian's. And I think I did listen to a part of Melanie Gibbs way back when it was the part about the zombies, and she was denying the zombies idea for herself, but it was something she affirmed. So let me know in the comments real quick before we go if you guys want to watch those extra interviews and stuff that's around this whole situation. I'm kind of down for either one. So. But they're long. That's why I'm saying. If you guys do want to watch it, let me know. They're very long, and I don't know how much more swearing you guys can handle, how much more times I can make your ears bleed. But we've done good today. We didn't say anything. So other than that, Merry Christmas to everybody, or Happy Holidays. I do love you guys. I am grateful to have such an amazing community. Like I said, if we're going to do a Christmas stream, it would be probably Christmas night or Christmas Eve night. And we'll literally just hang out. I don't care what we do. We could play games together. We could do a fake case. If we got Rubby back, Rubby hasn't been back in a long time. So if we do that, we will bring Rubby back. So let me know. Other than that, love you guys. Appreciate you. Thank you for listening to the breakdown, and I'll see you guys very soon.